Hello, and welcome back to our podcast, Flower Farming in New Zealand, where we dig into the detail of growing beautiful blooms here in Aotearoa. I'm your host, Jo Robinson, a flower farmer, a flower lover, and a creator of floral works. I'm keen to encourage the growing, buying, selling, and the use of our gorgeous local and seasonal flowers. This season, the podcast is brought to you by United Flower Growers, or as it's known in the trade, UFG. Talk to UFG today about buying or selling your flowers through their organisation. Today I'm chatting with my guest, Sarah Rutherford, a flower farmer with the absolutely best name for her flower farm. Sarah is based in the Wanaka area of Central Otago, and when we recorded this, it's still the end of winter in this part of the country. In fact, snow flurries are expected in parts of the region today. Welcome, Sarah. Lovely to have you with us so that you can tell us a bit about your journey as the joy farmer.
Thanks for that lovely introduction, Jo, and nice to be talking to you.
So, how did you come up with that gorgeous name for your flower farm?
Unfortunately, there's no grand story to that. It was actually the name for a fictitious business that I originally came up with when I started on this journey. So, yeah, there's nothing too remarkable about the story of the joy farmer.
It sits beautifully with flower farming, though, so I'd make up a story in the future so that people are really impressed with how you got there. So when did you get started in flower farming?
Well, if we cast our mind back to April 2020, first COVID lockdown, I was sitting at home, like many of us, waiting for the 1 p.m. update. Our worlds, as we know it, had been shattered.
Yep.
And we didn't know what our future held. So I thought, what am I going to do with my time? I was working for a small local brand at the time. And COVID had been on our radar for a bit longer than most people because we manufactured out of China. So I knew it was coming. I just didn't really know what it was going to look like for New Zealand. So I found myself at home, and I have always used Instagram. I've consumed content from the very get-go. I was a very early adopter, but I never used it myself to create content or share content, really. But I love following people. I always found it really inspirational and a really great tool for gathering information. So I saw all these people sharing free content and free courses, and one of them was a creative entrepreneur course. So yeah, I signed up to it. It was from a lady that had a global brand. And she had been writing this course, and she just decided to press go, even though it wasn't quite finished. And we sort of became like her beta group of testers for this course. And as part of that, you had to create, you either had a business or you were going to create a business, and it was meant to be something creative based. So, that is how I got started. I was sitting in my office and I had to come up with an idea of what I was going to base my business on. And I looked across the room, and like everyone in those 3 days leading up to our COVID lockdown, we were like, what do we need? I went to my 10 and thought I was going to grow vegetables, but so did everyone else in Wanaka. So it was absolutely decimated. There was no plants, there was no seeds. And I came home with one packet of sweet peas, and I hadn't grown sweet peas since I was a child, and my daughter and I potted them up. Actually, we didn't even have pots. I had to use an egg crate, which is the worst thing to grow sweet peas in because they like a long container, a deep container for their roots. Anyway, so we planted these sweet peas. So when I went to do this course, I looked across at my office, and here were these sweet pea seeds that just germinated. I thought, I'll base it on flowers. I did. So I started doing this course. It was a month long, and each day you had a separate task you had to do, and one of them was name your business, and so we've covered that.
Yep.
And at the same time, I started researching about the industry, and I discovered Christy from Nourish Gardens and Julie from the Pickery, and they were about to launch their new venture, which is now known as the Floral Business Activator. And so I just thought, well, why not sign up? So I signed up to that as well. Then I got sort of just introduced to this whole world in New Zealand, which I didn't know existed. So
that's a really cool progression, though, isn't it? And it's interesting because it's almost given you the opportunity to create your business plan before you've created your farm, which I'm a huge fan of.
Yes. I too, Joe, and I should know this from my
But
business background, but everything I've done in my farm is not what you would do if you were setting up a business, a flower farming business. I've really challenged all of the rules. So
but that's deliberate, though, isn't it? You just like challenging rules. It wasn't a fumble along in the dark.
no, I wasn't going in blind, but I just chose to ignore the rules, which was an interesting take. Haven't chosen the easiest path for myself.
So that really is what drew you to growing flowers. At the time when you were making the choices of what you were going to do, flowers were in your face. They were there
Yes,
and giving you an opportunity.
absolutely. And I didn't think too hard about it because lots of people said, "Why did you choose flowers?" And I don't know. I've
Because I
always loved
can.
garden. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
gardening. I love flowers. My family, both sides of my family are big gardeners. Grown up on a farm, so I've always been around growing,
Yes.
but not commercially. Yeah, that side of it was all new.
So how big is your growing space and what kind of setup do you have? Because I think I'm right saying that you actually are running off two different sites, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah. For a numbers person, also, I'm just not looking at numbers because I probably wouldn't do it. I don't actually know how much space I have. My setup is quite unusual. It's quite hodgepodge. So, as I said, I never intended to turn this into a business, but then I just sort of momentum gathered and I decided actually I would grow some flowers and just have a wee play because I still didn't know what was happening in the world as the months flowed on in
Yeah.
COVID. And so I just carved out a little piece of land that was already within the sort of fenced area of my parents' homestead garden, which is a garden that's been in my family for generations.
How
Yeah,
far is that from where you live, though?
30 minutes. So it's a
Yeah.
30-minute drive, which another very poor decision.
That's necessity, though, isn't it? It's not so much a poor decision, it changes the way you work rather than
Yeah.
anything else.
And I mean, there's huge advantages for me choosing to farm there as well. And I can talk about that. But um, yeah, essentially out the back of sort of mum and dad have a lovely country garden. And out the back, there was always this big productive area from, the turn of the century when they grew all their vegetables.
Yeah.
And dad's slowly, every generation sort of reduced that area down. And dad's now down to, a few raised beds for his veggies. But when I was a kid, it was still kind of a big, almost small little paddock area, but that's sort of become lawn. And there was still a bit of bank and area, and it used to have a few fruit trees on it. And we got a very strange winds. You probably encountered them too, Joe, a few years ago, and they came from completely different direction. They took down a lot of trees that had been
Trees.
around for a long time in our districts, and some of those were old fruit trees, and so they had come down, and so there was this bare bit of land next to the vegetable garden, but it wasn't where you would you probably have chosen a flat paddock. We've got plenty of those at the farm, but no, I chose to plant next to the vegetable patch because there was infrastructure there. People
That's not a silly decision at all, but I just have this vision of you doing an Edmund Hillary and grabbing a flag and sticking it in that vegetable plot and saying, "That's mine, Dad."
That is exactly what happened. And so I cleared the fat hen off and where all the lawn mowing clippings had been dumped. And Dad luckily decided to bring in his digger at that time. We have a digger at the farm and we have a heap where we sort of put all our green waste. We don't compost as such. We don't turn it, but it does eventually compost down. So he sort of rotated it with his digger and found the good soil. So we were able to bring in some good soil. And I sort of mapped out based on this unusual shape that is on a slight slope, rows, which are all different lengths. So nothing about this makes sense because once you know a little bit more about flower farming, to be efficient, you want, even size rows so everything fits on the same rows and all of that type of stuff. And you probably want a flat area, not a sloping area, etc.
So, with such an unusual shape and with some quite distinct challenges on that site, how did you decide what flowers to grow and why did you choose those?
Yeah, good question, Joe. No, I think we would all give people advice, grow the flowers that are easy to grow and learn how to grow them properly. But
But
I didn't. Like every new enthusiastic grower, I went for what was pretty. And I also just didn't actually read the packets of seeds. So there was quite a lot of failures. I sort of remembered sowing things with my father and my grandfather and which was all direct sown in the field. But, they wouldn't have been things that needed light probably, or surface sown, all of those things. So yeah, I went for what was pretty and what I liked. And some of the things I knew because I'd grown them as a child. I wouldn't have really thought about how I grew them. I just grew them. And it was probably luck. So yeah, that was my decision. And I kind of knew what grew around here because of our climate, obviously. But yeah, at the start, I was pretty naive.
So how long is your natural growing season at your parents' farm?
It's probably very similar to you, given we're over one. So Joe, for those of you who don't know, just lives over a mountain range, literally from me.
Just
so
a
we've got
small
mountain range
range
between us, one side the Dunstan Range. But my growing season's naturally from spring, which is September. Occasionally we get a bit of growth in August, but not really. And then I have a soft ending, I say end of March. I mean, we grew to May this year, but
Yes, we did too. Yeah.
That's not normal.
No.
So yeah, it's pretty short.
Yeah. Yeah, we are the same. And May is unusual for us to be able to relatively easily grow to. Mother's Day is always sort of a bit of a target, but it is a stretch. It makes it not really financially viable because it is such of a stretch. Do you extend your season with any growing tunnels or a hothouse or anything like that?
No, I've purposely decided not to do that. I think it comes down to that financial thing, the extra work and time and effort to really stretch. If I have flowers and I can sell them in the month of April and through to Mother's Day, I will, but no, I don't.
I can understand that completely. How do you handle the challenges that we have in Central Otago? Not just the weather and the incredibly free-draining soil, but what about those dreaded Central Otago rabbits, which are the bane of my life?
Well, funny you say that because they're not the bane of my life. They are the bane of my life. I don't know whether it's just we used to always have a dog that lived within the garden, and we've always had a cat. And so rabbits aren't a big problem for me. It's the quail. We have a covey of quail that live in the garden, and they love to grind seeds, and which is good because I don't get a lot of self-seeded stuff because they eat them all. But they really love plants, particularly at those fringe seasons when there's not a lot around. That's when you got either your young plants that autumn planted or your spring plantings. So
yeah, I will say we cover ours with grape netting on hoops to stop the quail getting to them. We just have to, and it's just become a habit for us. But I'm a bit jealous of the fact you don't have rabbits because we certainly do. Yeah. So do you grow most of your flowers from seed or do you buy in plugs?
Pretty much everything's from seed. I have bought in plugs occasionally, like I bought in ranunculus plugs. But there's that saying that you don't bring plants south. And I definitely think there's something in that because they struggle in our climate. We're as you know, pretty unique climate. We're a pretty extreme climate, and most plants are not used to enduring those extremes.
I think a lot of it, and this is what a lot of people don't understand, they say, oh, you're so cold down there. We can be cold, but then by the middle of the afternoon,
so hot.
It's so hot. So it's those changes in the temperatures between day and night, which are such a challenge for the plants. They're a challenge for us as people, but they're a massive challenge for small plants,
and
particularly
especially
seedlings.
At those key moments like November when we are still can get down to 0 degrees, and as you say, can get up to 30.
Yeah,
and
easily.
It's wild.
So do you rely relatively heavily on shrubs and perennials which do cope with our climate?
Yeah, absolutely. That was actually always my intention, was to be a perennial-based flower farm. So I did do a little bit of research before I started planting. I probably should have said that earlier, and I sort of looked around and I was like, I feel like the gap in the market is supplying perennials because a lot of people focus on annuals because I looked at what other people were already growing in our region.
Yes.
And so I already loved perennials. So I thought that's what I will focus on, but then I just got sucked in to the annuals, and I still am. Like every year, I've got this huge container of perennial seed of things I want to start and get established. But every year, I get busy doing the stuff with the annuals, and the perennials sort of get left behind. I was lucky; there was already a lot of established perennial plantings within the homestead garden. So I
Yeah.
have been able to use those, and then I've tucked in extra stuff within Mum's garden. So yeah.
It makes such a difference to have those more mature perennials and shrubs. For me, yeah, I mean, you've walked around our farm with me and looked at the shrubs we've got access to, and I just keep wishing that I'd planted even more 25 years ago. Perennials in our climate are way more dependable and they just cope with our weather and our soil that much better. If you choose the right ones, obviously, there's things we can't grow, but there's plenty
Totally.
that we can.
Yes.
Let's take a moment to hear from our sponsors. Season 2 of this podcast is proudly sponsored by UFG, New Zealand's largest flower wholesaler. While UFG is best known for its in-house auctions in Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch, it operates other platforms to ensure growers connect with the right buyers and buyers with the best flowers. Listen to our sponsors episode of the podcast and check out the UFG website to learn about the innovative remote online flower auctioning system and the virtual wholesale platform. And if you need another option, there are 4 on-site wholesale outlets based in Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch and Invercargill. UFG, connecting growers with the right buyers and buyers with the best flowers. Hey petals, and just like that, we're back into today's conversation. So, very interestingly to me, you work as part of a collective of growers, yeah? Can you explain what a collective is and tell us how your collective works in practice?
Well, actually, I don't work in part of a collective anymore, but I do
Okay.
still work collaboratively with other growers. I guess it was a collective. There was a group of growers. We decided to band together. I had been listening to a lot of content overseas at the time during COVID in America, particularly, and they were really struggling because they are very heavily reliant on imports. And
Mm-hmm.
so their industry wasn't used to buying from local farmers. And I realized that we needed to get volume. To get volume, you needed to join together because we were all growing little bits and pieces. So our main market here is wedding and events, and they need large amounts of flowers to get that volume and offer the consistency to the florists. So yeah, we joined together, and for a few years we did sell collectively, but this year one of the growers is actually going to take the wholesale piece and manage that, and she will source what she doesn't have from us. So yeah,
Okay,
we're
so
moving.
basically now you're selling to her and she's become the wholesaler for the events.
Yep,
It's a
excellent.
pretty cool. In a way, that works better for your situation because you're not having to think about the admin of the collective. You've just got it to sell or you haven't.
Yeah, and that was the problem. The admin and the management of the collective was, and the communication was taking up so much time. And we were dividing it between all of us and doing bits and pieces. It also meant messages were getting missed between florists because they didn't know who to contact. We had one
Yeah.
point of contact where all the cons were meant to come, but what happens is there's always last minute orders. And when orders are last minute, they tend to come through whatever form the florist can grab fastest, whether that's Instagram, phone. And so they may have rung a grower directly, and then that grower has had to ring all the other growers and try and gather what they need. Yeah, then there was that risk that something would get missed or dropped. And that's a lot of time as
Yeah.
well.
I'm just thinking that that's so admin heavy.
Yeah, heavy.
If you have to then do that, as you say, with a collective, there needs to be one point of contact to make it work for all of you.
Which is
Yeah.
what we had. We had one email account where every order was meant to come through, but it didn't always work in theory.
No, once you've got a relationship with a florist, are they going to go to an email when they can ring you?
No,
They're not going to
exactly.
stop work to go to a computer. They're going to ring you. You know, that
Yeah.
I can understand why it unraveled. Yeah. Hopefully the new system will work for you and you'll be able to go from there. When you were part of the collective, were you only selling to the collective or did you have your
No.
own sales channels as well?
We've always had our individual businesses, always had our other sales channels, and always, yeah. So there's always been other things going on, but the wholesale part is a big part of my business.
Which is a lovely way to sell, I have to say. You've always run an Insta account and you said that that was sort of your life was Insta. Is that the main way you connect with your customers and your local community?
Be honest, I don't really sell that much through Instagram, but it is how I It's how I've connected with all sorts of people across the world. It's been really fun. But majority, as you said, once you've got your established relationships with your local market, a lot of it is word of mouth, to be honest. We're in such a small community. Once people know you, they, support you, which is really cool.
It is lovely, isn't it? And you're right. Having a small community around you who are happy to support local businesses is what most of us need. And it doesn't matter whether you're in a huge city or in a little rural town.
No,
If you've got a community that supports you, they are doing the work for you if you keep them happy.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So what's been the biggest learning curve for you in running a flower farm?
Probably managing my time. Obviously, being not on site is not easy. And I'm also having to work within school hours. So having to try and manage that as well gives me only small windows. And then I also have other demands in my life that aren't flower related. So it's just fitting everything in.
That's life, Sarah, though, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it
And
is.
and if you have got so many parts of your life that you're trying to juggle, then you have to make that choice. And that's an interesting choice that we all have to make. But I think for you, selling wholesale to whoever's managing the wholesale part will make that so much easier for you.
Yes. And I'm really lucky the two florists in Wanaka are on my drive back into town, so I can easily swing in and drop off. So
Little things like that, they make the world a difference.
yeah,
You know, they do. And
absolutely.
particularly Wanaka in summer when it's manically busy and you can't get a part within 10 Ks, if you can just swing past and drop off, that certainly helps, doesn't it? So is there something that you wish you had known about flower farming earlier on?
What I wish I'd known was how patient I needed to be, and I should know that as well. But it is a game of patience.
You'd have understood in a way the harshness of our climate and the
Hmm.
difference in our soil between what we can grow here because it's so free draining, and you'd understand frosts even if you didn't think about it as a child or when you went into it. You knew you had a limited season because you knew you could have snow or frost. For people that don't know, Wanaka does get a lot more snow than we do. We very seldom get snow. Wanaka sometimes gets snow.
But yes, I think I had that inherent knowledge, and I knew about seasons. I mean, I've grown up in the seasons, and the weather have been the force that has made all the decisions in my family's farming business.
And just your life as a family. Dad's got
Yes.
this to do, therefore we can't go somewhere. Dad's got to be doing this, or mum's got to be doing that.
In the 365 demand of being working on the land, there's always something to do. You can't just walk away. There's always someone relying on you. Sometimes I drive away and I'm like, I'm not sure whether there'll be any plants when I come back because I'm not there to monitor them, but that's okay.
That's hard. It's hard, but it's the decision that
Yeah.
you've made, and you're making it work for you, which I think is the only way that a flower farm works is if you can make it work with your life. Yeah. So, what's the most annoying myth or misunderstanding that people often come up with when they're talking to you about flower farming?
I think everyone has seen the staged, beautiful, full blown flower farms. And with
Mm.
flowers everywhere, and everyone assumes that's what you go to every day. And the reality is, as you know, Joe, if you're doing a job properly, there shouldn't be flowers in the field. Or depending on the variety, obviously, but often there's no flowers in the field. So it's not like you are wafting around in beautiful fields of
White
flowers
dresses, yeah.
and
I
white linen dresses.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, yeah. With nail polish and yeah, no hat, no
yeah,
sunscreen.
yeah.
I agree with you completely. I get very frustrated when people say things to me like, your garden must look beautiful. Actually, my flower farm has nothing open and that's how I want it. And people just don't understand that. And you hate to harp on at them and say, but we're picking before they're open.
Yeah.
It's just
We often never get to see the beauty.
we don't, because how often do we actually put flowers in our own houses? I
Yeah.
tend not to,
Yeah.
and if they do, they're the wonky stems. I,
Yeah.
I love wonky
The
stems.
reject.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We suit rejects, flower farmers, we do. But yeah, it's very interesting. I agree with you 100% on that. It's the image that people have of what a flower farm should look like. and that's not the reality.
Yeah, and I do get asked from time to time, like people want to come and do engagement shoots or wedding shoots, and they want this beautiful flowery scene. And I'm like, it's just not the
Don't have it.
reality.
Yeah.
Unless it's sort of end of season, or I'm saving seed, or I've let a crop go, or yeah. But I am quite lucky in that because I'm selling to wedding and event markets, they do want things ready to go. At times I do have stuff open, but yeah, it's just not what people imagine.
And I've been I was talking to another flower farmer the other day who was setting up a part of her farm as a photo shoot opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
And for me, it will never work because I trained first as a landscaper. And if I'm having someone take a photograph, it needs to look good. And
Yes.
my flower farm's not weed free and
No,
it's not clean and tidy. And there's tools and there's mud and there's weeds and there's dirt and there's bird netting and there's row covers. And so I think it takes a very special person who can be committed enough to make that photography opportunity work. What's your favourite flower to grow and why is that your favourite?
yeah. I think like things that always do well, scabiosas just thrive. Cosmos do really well. Things that like it hot and dry
Yeah. With good drainage.
with good drainage.
Yeah.
I've worked out what struggle here, and I just don't bother with them unless I really love them. Then I'll still grow a few, not necessarily for selling.
What would that be if it's something you really love, even though it struggles?
I'm trying to think now. I still always grow phlox, even though it can be a bit of a messy crop and a bit tricky to harvest.
Are you talking the annual phlox or the
Annual,
perennial
yeah.
phlox?
I love the perennial. The perennial's amazing, but the annual is faffy.
I agree with you completely. I've stopped growing the annual because it's just too faffy. Don't have
Yeah,
time for that. I was having to pinch it 2 or 3 times to even get a stem worth cutting. I'll stick with the
understand.
perennial. Yeah. So do you have a favourite moment in the growing season?
Definitely spring, hands down. I've always loved spring. Everything about it at the farm, I think, is quite magical. We have all the baby animals, obviously, which is lovely. It's just that energy of spring. It's fresh season. Everyone's enthusiastic. And those first flowers that come up just feel extra special. And those bulbs emerging from the ground and the blossom, definitely spring.
It's lovely when there's the blossom on the fruit trees. I can enjoy the beauty and
Yes.
not have to do the work. They're a gift
Yeah.
rather than a job,
Yes.
which is quite a lovely way to be able to start your season.
We are spoiled because, autumn's absolutely stunning in Central Otago too.
The colours are stunning, aren't they? Yeah. I'm going to hit you with the 3 questions that I ask everybody. How do you see your flower farm evolving over the next few years?
Gosh, Joe, every year I never know whether I'm going to do another year. So that's an interesting one. I think I'm evolving to be more experience based. I've discovered that my customers really want to play with flowers and enjoy flowers. And so I'm going to explore that space and see where I end up.
Do workshops and things like that, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, just find ways to encourage people to engage and learn about getting outdoors. I think it's so critical that we're at this turning point where we've lost a lot of skills in that space. And I think it's really important that everyone starts connecting back to the seasons and where things are growing and how things are growing and understanding that.
Becoming more grounded
Yes.
while still being creative, which is a lovely way of looking at it. I think you're selling yourself short there because you've got perennial seeds. So if you've got perennial seeds, you are evolving over the next few years, whether it's just for your own garden or for a flower farm. You've still got things to grow. You'll be there.
Absolutely. No matter what happens for me in the future, I will always grow and gardening will always be a part of my life. And I'll always be passionate about plants now. I have this whole new appreciation for garden and particularly for my garden at the farm. I loved learning and discovering all these things that my grandparents, my great grandparents planted. Now
That's
I
cool.
really appreciate them, which is cool.
It is very, very special. Just to me, that's the epitome of the joy farmer, as you find those, and that's that feeling of joy and connection and everything else. I love that image in my head of you finding some hellebores that your great grandmother had planted on that site, and they're still flowering.
I can walk around the garden and see a tapestry of all the different hands that have touched the garden over the years, which is really beautiful.
It is beautiful. Are there any new varieties or ideas or even experiments that you're excited about? And I'm guessing you've sort of answered that with your workshop question, haven't you?
Yeah, there is. I'm always trying new flowers, and now I do have some raised beds in Wanaka because I like to have some flowers on hand. So another growing site. That's quite a good place to test little small amounts and
That's a good
controlled
idea.
environment.
Yep.
It's like a little
Yeah.
test garden.
Yep.
I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm trying some new tulips, some new daffodils. I always have new bulbs. I'll try a few new dahlias. I often grow things for Jen from Studio 24 Botanicals. I sometimes trial her dahlias to check how robust they are before she releases them to the market. But yeah, perennials. I've got all these perennials I want to meet, so I need to get those seeds sown.
You do indeed. So, having thought about all those things, what does success look like or feel like for you in flower farming?
Freedom. Freedom on so many levels. Freedom of expression, freedom to choose, freedom to be a parent and do all the other things in my life because it's my business and I can mold it to suit my situation. Yeah.
Sarah, it's been an absolute joy talking to the Joy Farmer. We do have to get those perennial seeds sown sometime soon.
We do. Well, thank you so much, Jo, for what you're doing and bringing these stories to New Zealand and beyond and sharing what's happening in the cut flower world. I appreciate that it takes a lot of time to put these podcasts together. So thank you for all you're doing.
You're more than welcome. Until next time, petals, smile, be happy. Please follow along this season as with the support of UFG, we can bring you flower farming in New Zealand. UFG, New Zealand's largest flower broker. Talk to them today about buying and selling your flowers.